I wanna try and take in all the highs, embrace them for more than a moment's time. I want you, please don't move when I push you away. I know I contradict myself some days, but will you ride the lows with me?
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I am your host, Kristen Sunanta Walker. Our goal is to help discussions about mental health be a regular part of your daily life, no different than discussions about physical health. Mental illness can be a topic of discussion under the umbrella of mental health, along with so many other topics. This show is the original program on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Our network of shows are played in over 180 countries and cover more topics under that umbrella than you can possibly imagine. We were talking about mental health long before it became cool and popular to talk about, and thank goodness it has become so popular. We have incredible guests, advocates, patients, experts, people. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy our intro music, a song named Lows, written by Aubrey Toon. You can find her music at www.aubreytoone.com.
That night when I started praying, I cried. Will you ride the lows with me? Will you ride the lows with me? When I'm down, my vision gets blurry.
Dr. Judith Orloff, thank you so much. It's been such a long time, but thank you for coming. It's almost been 10 years, so I'm so glad to have you back on the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I love your new book. Can you share with everyone the name of it and the audience it's for?
Yes, it's called The Highly Sensitive Rabbit, and it's for children who are different. It's for children who are highly sensitive and may not feel like they belong in the world. It's about a little rabbit named Aurora who is shamed and bullied by her brothers and sisters, and then finds her way through the love of other animals to embrace her sensitivities and her unique and precious self.
So what inspired you after so many books that you've written about empaths? What inspired you to move into writing a children's book?
Well, I look at the world today and I think that the children are the ones that need so much care and so much nurturing. If they're sensitive, they need to learn how to grow up to be proud of themselves. And if they're different and they don't fit into some mold, they have to learn to be proud of themselves. And because I was always different, I never fit in, the typical path. I always felt different than other people. And I just, that never, it was a horrible feeling growing up. And so I want these children to feel like they're people who understand them and that they're amazing kids and they have great gifts and they have some challenges, and here are how to deal with them so that they're in good shape so they can inherit the earth when I'm gone, let's say, that they can take over. And the children are so important. That's just intuitively, that's such a strong hit right now, that children are the ones that, are going to make a huge difference here.
And that the direction, even though this is my personal belief, so listeners, if this bothers you, I apologize, but this is my personal belief that the empathic children are the ones that are going to be our future leaders, even though it does not in any way look like that right now. That is, in my opinion, what is going to happen. I think things are very loud right now because they're dying out. And so a book like this is so indicative of where we're moving, I think, as a society, really honoring the fact that being highly empathic has been labeled and propagandized to be weakness, when actually it's about the most strength someone could have.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you. But I think one caveat of that is that they need to learn strategies not to absorb all the suffering and the stress in the world. And that's one thing. It's a very simple book, which I love. I love simplicity. I don't like complexity. And it's about what can Aurora do. She could learn to set a boundary and say no. She could learn how to take some alone time. She could learn to talk to an understanding friend. These are things that sound simple, but they're very important for children and also us adults. It's interesting what I'm finding at my book signings is there are adults coming too. It's the moms and the dads, but also adults bringing their inner empathic child in that they want to nurture. And that makes me so happy.
I know. I love this preponderance of adults realizing through their children getting diagnosed with things like autism, ADHD, and so on, and realizing, oh my gosh, that might be me too.
Right.
And so I can see where a book like yours would really speak to that, those adults as well as the kids. So yeah, it's quite fascinating to hear what's going on out in the world and what's happening with people and how they're waking up and remembering themselves.
That's right. And I think all the stress in the world is helping people do that because they're pushed to limits that they aren't usually pushed to. And the level of suffering in the world is so huge and it's just so chaotic that the resonances of memory can come back, in terms of who I really am and who was I as a child. And that's what this book is, hopefully to help people remember who was I as a child? How was I treated? How did I treat myself? And how have I evolved to treat myself better? That's so important.
Yeah, that's what I got through reading it. First of all, the illustrations are so lovely. Oh my gosh, they're so lovely. But yes, the simplicity as you go through the book and I could imagine reading it to my child who's now, 36, so he would never read it now, maybe later. But if I had that when he was a child, it would have been such a balm to him and to me as an adult reading it, completely unaware about what an empath was, about what autism was, all those things, several years ago. I had really no clue, but that your book would have really honored a space without needing to put a label on anything.
That's right. That's as I'm a psychiatrist also for everyone listening. And one big issue that I have with all of this is that kids are pathologized and they're put in boxes and they shouldn't be in any boxes ever, ever. And so it's important to know that that's what the medical profession does because we're trained to do the DSM and that's putting people in boxes. And, it does generally give certain symptoms of certain things, but it's not good to look at people in terms of categorizations like that. And especially with empaths and, ADHD and the spectrum, it's so easy to misdiagnose people. And then they go down the mental health route, which can be so disastrous.
Yes.
So this hopefully will help, in a simple way, straighten what your priorities are. If you're sensitive, if you're different, if you're, not fitting into the mold, join the club. There's lots of us out there now. They're not hanging their heads in shame anymore like they were years ago. And I was full of shame, as a child. You get, a thicker skin. You're never going to make it in the world. You're too sensitive, over and over and over again. I heard that.
You're too much. You're just too much. Yeah. Especially if you're highly verbal and it doesn't quite fit in line with the whole, you're also sensitive. And couldn't be further than the truth.
That's exactly right. But that's what we grew up with. And that's what Aurora, the rat cottontail, grew up with. And, in my signings, I'm getting these little kids who say they relate. They're not very verbal about it, though. They'll shake their head. I relate. I shake, like that. But they're not, but they're young kids, they're between 4 and 8. And some the older ones are a little bit more verbal, but they tend to, keep it close. Keep it close. They're not proud of the abilities, let's say at this point. But the mothers who have come in have been very supportive and loving, I can see. And some are empaths and on the spectrum. And so it's lots of understanding there.
Oh, yeah. The weaving through what an empath is, what being autistic means, what like diagnosis means, and then adopting a label and finding so much freedom because you know things that that make so much sense now, but also then kind of ditching the label, realizing, I've processed a lot and I'm glad I have this information, but I don't need to like be rigid about what this what this label means. It's quite a journey for a lot of people.
Yes, it is. And I just want to say that I dedicated the book to my partner and also his grandson who's on the spectrum. And throughout the process of me writing this book, I've been showing Caesar, the grandson, various parts of it, asking what he liked, what he didn't like. And when I showed him just the black and white sketch of the cover of the book, his first reaction was, "Let's read it. It's perfect."
That's the best. Yeah, what a compliment. Exactly.
What a compliment.
Well, I have a question for you. There's someone out there that's got a pretty big following that mentions you on maybe every fifth show of his. His name is Sterling. And you may know who I'm talking about and may not, but he mentions your book. And when he's talking about the different clairs that people have, and he'll say there's one that's called a clair empath, and he'll mention your book each time and say, that's a really good book to read. But something he said that struck me, and I wanted to get your take on it, was sometimes you have to kind of learn that you've got to be a little bit cold if you're highly, highly empathic or an empath. It's not that you are cold inside. It's just a way to put out kind of a boundary shield around yourself. And I wondered what your thoughts were about that kind of verbiage.
Is that Sterling's verbiage?
Yeah.
Okay, you could be cold, but you can also be neutral. I think I'm going to have a conversation with Sterling about it to see why he feels you have to be cold. But if you're neutral, things bounce off of you. It's when you're highly reactive that they don't. But I understand what he's saying, because you have to, I call it loving detachment, where you just keep a little distance from someone and you give them the message, I'm not here for this, really. And that's okay. That's okay. And to set a boundary, like, no, it's not okay. No, I don't do this. For instance, I don't really like to shake hands with people very much unless I know them, because energy is transferred in the hand. And so I see people, because I speak in public and people come right at me. They're excited to see me and they're pointing their hand right at me and I see what's coming. So I think, how do I say that in a way that's not going to insult them? Because that's kind of a weird thing to say if people aren't used to it, and so, I've just learned how to say, I see it coming and don't get scared. I say, I know how to handle it. I say, I see how excited you are. I'm excited to see you too, but I don't really shake hands. It's not something I do. And they go, oh, okay. And that's what most people do. They just go, oh, okay. If I say it in a matter-of-fact way without being panicked, oh no, I can't do that. Or if I turn cold, I don't turn. One of my ways isn't to turn icy cold. That isn't who I am. But I do say, let's keep a distance. This is too close. No.
Yeah, exactly. When people come in hot, even if they mean absolutely well, but their energy is kind of all over. I think that's what I got from the way he said it. He said almost cold. So he wasn't saying just cold, but I thought, that's interesting. And it was interesting to listen to him, which I only started listening to him about mid last year. And then he kept mentioning you. And I went, I know who he's talking about.
It's nice, because I've never actually met him, but I've heard that from other people. So maybe I'll send him a little note saying hi.
Yeah, he's very matter of fact, which I appreciate. I really as you go through this process of learning about your own levels of empathy and so on, it's interesting what you do figure out. Like, I also don't want to be hugged or touched because to me, it's a direct download. I have to really sort of shield up and go, that's their energy. Otherwise, I'll walk around and think, why do I feel so weird? Oh, wait a minute, that's residue from this other person. It's not me. And then have to kind of let that dissipate. So it is very important to know those things. Like, touching is reserved for really safe people that know. It doesn't need to be every person you meet on the street.
Yes, and I love the more formal approach where, may I hug you? Well, you ask somebody, may I do this? And you say, thank you for asking. No, not right now. But thank you for asking. It's just a very, very polite thing to do. Very sensitive, high emotional intelligence to ask that question.
It is. And I think about that when thinking of your children's book. All of the classrooms that I went into with a therapy dog to work with the kids that were the quote unquote troubled kids. They were all the kids on the spectrum. And I sat in those classrooms thinking, this is what they should be teaching in every classroom. Here is my bubble. This is your bubble. And I'd sit in there and go, I'm in class. I'm supposed to be here as a volunteer, but I am learning so much from what these kids are learning. And it was so weird to see go out on a lunch break, and these are the kids that are getting made fun of and bullied, and yet they're learning unbelievable coping skills for life that are not necessarily being taught in standard classrooms.
Wow. Oh, yeah, that's wonderful. We need to teach the kids skills. And that's what I wanted to do. And when I ask the kids who come to my signings, what's their reaction to this? They like the bubble, they like the boundary, they like the animals, they love animals,
Of course.
and they like the colors. These are young kids, so they like the colors and they like looking, they're very soothing colors. So they like the soothingness of the colors, which I think is incredible, having an illustrated book, because it transmits so much more than just words.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And you're right. The colors are very moody, dreamscape. It kind of reminds me of, in a different way, but the closest thing I could think of is the illustrations and Where the Wild Things Are. Just very moody and very dreamlike and very inviting to go to that dream space, which is where most sensitive kids live a lot of the time.
Yes, and it's quiet. It'll wrap you up, in a comfortable energy. And it's a quiet energy. And you could just look at the pictures if you want when you're reading the book. Just look at the pictures or read a few words. It's not that many words in the book. I think there's about 400 words in the book. No, it's not like a big book. It's mainly illustrations. And sometimes the illustrations go on both pages. So it's panoramic view of the desert. And there's a storm that happens in the book where they lose their home. And this, living in LA, was very reminiscent of what just happened here, which is a terrible tragedy. But it happens to Aurora too. And then how she comes together as the result of the help of other animals. And that's an important message that I want to get across, is that we can't do it alone. We really can't. It's not that kind of thing. It's too hard. Because then you start feeling lonely, isolated, symptomatic. You start absorbing other people's stuff, and the news is too much, everything. So you have to have at least one person, maybe a couple more, or a group if you have it. But you don't need a posse of people. But you need some people to talk to who you can trust. Somebody that you could go to and say, hey, I'm feeling kind of weird today. This is what I'm feeling, and then have them say, oh, maybe it's a good time to take a bath, or just really smart things that you don't think of when you're starting to go on sensory overload.
Right. When you
So
start stimming like me in the womb, I was chewing my fingers till they bled. So
right, exactly, to catch that, when you lift a finger up, to just call somebody, but then to bring it down. And, I don't know if you have stuffed animals, but we have tons of stuffed animals. So they're my inner child gets a lot of nurturing here in this house.
yeah.
and, that helps, the child and the adult.
After I just thought of this, I hadn't attributed it to you, but my memory now just pinged me back that after we did that show in 2016, yeah, that was it. That was it. I went out and I bought a stuffed Snoopy because that was my companion. My aunt and uncle wrote a whole book about me and my Snoopy living in an upside down world and all this stuff. But I actually, after that show with you, I went and bought a stuffed Snoopy, which I still have on my bed.
Oh, that's cute.
So though, yeah, those things are really important to nurture. When you were writing the book and thinking about what kind of a different space did you move into for this artistic endeavor than you do with the books where you're really focusing on adult energy?
Well, my inner child was very involved with this book. And some of my other books, The Genius of Empathy or The Empath Survival Guide, it's not so much involved, the inner child. It's always with me because I really value her and I keep her with me. And very important that she's with me all the time and feels safe. Very important. But this book really was a playground for that, and bringing her out and and her reactions to all of this. And so I've enjoyed it so much. I've enjoyed this book and talking to people about it because I think my inner child has a bigger stage for this book, which I love. And because I've healed a lot in this area. And when you heal, it feels great to be able to go out and talk about it. When you're no longer, ashamed of your abilities, but you're thrilled with them and you want to help others. That's a very kind of a heart-centered feeling.
Yeah, it's really lovely I don't even know where my inner child was for most of my life, right? Because she was not safe. I wasn't in safe environments, all those things. But as we were talking and I was just listening to you, where she sits physically, she sits right here, right in my chest. She's sitting like a lotus flower. She's just so there. And that's awesome because the journey to get here was quite interesting.
Yes, indeed, indeed. As it is with, all of us who go down this path. And it's just when you do heal, the point is that we will heal. I don't want people to stay stuck in the trauma or what's happened. It's important to look at it, but you will begin to heal. And that's a wonderful feeling. And that's one thing that Aurora learned was that she did begin to heal when she reached out to a community, basically, and had community of animals tell her, when I do this, when I feel anxious, I fly away and find some alone time. And when I do this, the javelina is her friend, which is the boar, the wild boar of the desert.
I love that character. Yeah.
I love javelinas. I met a javelina first in the Sonoran Desert outside of Tucson, and we just fell in love with them. They come in herds of javelinas, and they're wild creatures. You can't mess with them. So sweet. Oh my God. And
Yeah,
so
they're kind of like the representation of what a really well-boundaried yet fully present and honoring of themselves empath can be. Absolutely wild, fiercely protective.
yes.
And also in the middle, just this ooey gooey, lovely feeling creature. And so to be both is and to honor both is really interesting, and to teach kids that that's okay. That's not even okay. That's like a superpower is really phenomenal.
Oh yes. And the javelina isn't typically cute.
Right.
They're amazingly cute, but they're not typically cute. And not everyone will think they're cute. But if you do respond to them, they're just a wonderful, wonderful animal to know. And that was Aurora's best friend was the javelina. And what she learned from the javelina is that when she wants to look at the moon, Javi the javelina would be with her. Or if she wanted to be alone, that's okay with her too. So she learned how to say no. You don't have to be with your best friend everything you do. You can say, no, I'd rather be alone now and just look myself. And that's so great to be able to do that with people and friends.
Well, and also to teach people that, because there's so much with the empathic child that grows up, that there's such rejection sensitivity because you're so used to being rejected. You're too much, you're too this, you're too that, you're too overwhelming, whatever. But to learn not just about having the boundary, but also having a boundary around it is so okay if somebody tells you no. You don't have to take that as like a dagger in the heart. It doesn't have anything to do with you sometimes, and that it's okay. You don't have to, oh my gosh, I've been rejected.
Right. Right. And then when you say no, you could say a positive no. You do it with a loving tone. No, I'm so sorry. I can't do that. I wish I could, but can't do right now. So, and that's all you have to say. And
Right.
so the little, I wanted to write a book with just animals in it. I didn't want to have humans in it.
I can understand that totally.
Tired of humans sometimes, but I wanted to write a book with animals and how they relate. And so the human element isn't there. The overactive mind is not in this book. So
right. That's why it's so calming and soothing. And with the pictures, the pictures, that's the greatest thing. The best children's books, have the words, the simplicity, the meaning behind the meaning, so you don't have to overdo it. And then they also have the pictures. And what I love about this is I know as a kid, I would look at the same book over and over like so many kids do, just to find all the details I might have missed the other time I looked at the picture. This book does that.
Yep, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I sometimes sleep with books on my bed. So if I feel like it. And so I put this just on my bed, I didn't read it necessarily. I mean, I did sometimes look at it, but I just liked having it on my bed. I don't know. It's an instinct I have with certain books. I like them there. So, it's like one of those books. I mean, it can be your friend. This is the book that can be your friend. And it really can.
So do you think that you will write more children's books? Did this just start a creative fire for you and this was just the beginning?
Don't know yet because I'm so present with this book and I'm getting out in the world with this book that I can't think of anything else other than this. I stay very focused on what I'm doing and don't go on to the next thing very quickly. So who knows? Maybe we'll see, because I don't really do anything unless I get moved to do it.
Right.
And I won't just do it because it won't work. It won't be fun and it won't work. And it's very important to me that things are fun and they feel right on inside of myself. So we'll see. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I wanted to ask you about that process of when you do live in a space where you don't do things unless you are fully present in them. Do you ever have to kind of take a moment before you enter into something new where you think, do I really want to get in? Because you know how dedicated you get.
Yep.
Where you have to go, okay, right now isn't maybe the right time in my life for whatever reason. And so I can't dip into that in the way I would want to really honor it. Is that kind of a thing that resonates with you?
Sometimes. Or if I'm going through an issue in my life right now and it's not resolved yet, I don't write cathartically. I don't write to resolve, like as a psychotherapy for myself. I don't write that way. I
Mm,
get pretty much, to a balanced place with it before I share it as a teacher. That's just how that's just me. I'm not saying that's right for other people, but that's just how it's been for me. I wanted to evolve it. I don't want to write as I'm working it out. A lot of people do these autobiographies and they're writing about their anger at their mother, and it's just, they haven't resolved it yet. So you're essentially reading unresolved anger at their mother, which isn't that interesting to me personally. My heart goes out to you, but it's not in terms of writing. It's not the kind of writing I do.
mm. So you're really anchored before you move on into a project.
Little bit more resolved in terms of my being ready to write about it. Or if I'm in the middle of an issue and I'm going through a lot of pain, I won't write about, I mean, I will journal write. So I
Right.
journal write, but I won't write it as a book to publish usually. But who knows? This kind of thing is it moves, it changes.
Very
We'll see.
true.
Yeah.
Very, very true. Well, my last question for you is around, I want to circle back to the parents that show up and that are enjoying the book just as, it's a gift that they get to read it to their child and, oh, it's for you, honey. And well, it's also for you. So
That's right.
you've talked a little bit about that, but what has that felt like for you, being the empath that you are, to have so many people that are their child's parent having their own moving experience through this book that you've written?
Oh, I totally get it. I have the same moving experience reading it. I have a strange relationship with my books because I write them, I get them out, and then they are around my house, and then I just suddenly feel like reading them. It's almost a detached that I actually wrote the book. I like the book, and so I go and read it or look at it to help me, but I don't have the fixed identity that I wrote it, which is kind of odd, but it's just what it is. So I read my own books. I leave them around because I love them. And occasionally I'll just turn to a page. I believe in that, where you just turn to a page without thinking, and then that's the message for you. So
Well, this
that's
is one of those. Yeah, this is another one of yours. All of your books are that way.
Mm.
Oh, well, let's tell my listeners the name of the book again and where they can find out more about you and all the books that you've written.
The book is called The Highly Sensitive Rabbit. It's out a week now, so you can get it all online on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, independent bookstores, and it's in brick and mortar bookstores. And if they don't have it, they can order it for you. And I also have an empath support newsletter on my website, which is Judith Orloff, ORLOFF.com. And I send out kind of how-to tips and tricks on being an empath every month, if you're interested in that. And I have events I'm giving for the highly sensitive rabbit and sensitive mothers and sensitive children, sensitive dads, all on drjudithorloff.com.
Fantastic. Well, I'm so glad that we could catch up again, and I'm so happy that you wrote this book. What an incredible book for the time that we're in right now.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy you appreciate that.
We'll stay on. We're going to say goodbye to the listeners, and we'll talk for just a second after. But for now, listeners, thank you for tuning in with Dr. Judith Orloff. Judith, thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're very welcome.